What's up, nerds? Welcome to our top 10 of the decade.
That is a lot of energy you bring out.
Yeah, I know. Thank you.
With the 2010s behind us, we've decided to look back, and the two of us have put together our own top 10 list for the decade. Now, that being said, there's not as much crossover as I thought there would be.
There's more crossover than I thought there would be.
That's
There's
one game.
One game.
And me personally, I didn't want to have to put them in order, because that's a tall order. So, I'm just going to talk about my 10 favorite games from the past decade.
You didn't put them in order?
Fuck. Was I supposed to?
Yeah.
Alright.
We'll get back to you after the break. So we're going to go through both of our top 10s, individual top 10s. We can't come to a consensus. That's not what this show's about.
We're two different people.
Two very different people. I have no idea how we're friends. But we're going to do our 10 through 6. We're going to blow through those pretty quickly. Maybe stop comment on them a little bit. And then we're going to spend a little more time on each of our top 5s.
That is correct.
Had to burp off camera.
Thanks for that. So I'll go ahead and get this gravy train rolling with my number 10.
Number 10.
2010's Battlefield Bad Company 2. I know, he's giving me weird looks, but it is my favorite competitive multiplayer shooter that has come out in the past decade. So, there you have it.
Okay. I mean, I haven't played it. I can't shit talk it too much.
Yeah, it was probably one of the best. It played well, and it had something that I think a lot of first-person shooters forget about these days.
What's that?
Fun.
Oh, interesting. I've liked some Battlefield games, so I'm going to take your word for it. My number 10 is 2018's, it's written down right there, 2018's Chasm. By, I believe, BitKid Inc. It is a Metroidvania, I believe is the term the kids use. It's very much that. It has the feel, imagine the feel of, when people say Metroidvania, they think of Castlevanias like Symphony of the Night. Yeah. That's the go-to. This, I don't think feels... It feels more like if Castlevania 4 was rolled into Super Metroid.
Okay.
It's done in a way where there's handcrafted rooms, but also procedurally generated hallways and stuff, so that, you know, every playthrough is different.
I feel that.
So, is that a roguelite? Is that what that'd be called? What is a roguelite?
A roguelite is where it is permadeath, however you can unlock advancements that affect your next playthrough.
It's not that. It's not that at all.
Okay.
that's Binding of Isaac.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. But yeah, it's
roguish. Roguish.
Does anybody actually remember the game Rogue?
Only when referring to
Isn't that like an old Apple II game?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Simple as that. So, for my number 9.
Number 9.
And I think it might be yours too.
We share a number 9. This is our only crossover, and they're in the same place. That might be terrible on audio.
Who cares?
Get pumped.
Do you want to say it in a really weird unison?
It's 2011's Batman Arkham City. Arkham City is so good. I mean, that's not like a mind-blowing statement. I don't think anyone out there disagrees with us. None of the other Arkham games come close to my top 10 or were even considered. I like Arkham Asylum. It ain't this.
Arkham Asylum was a really good game, but it was so tightly packed
that
it felt more like a third person, going back to it, like a Metroidvania.
Yeah.
Because it was just you unlock gadgets, oh, you can go to this other part of the island now. And there's some of that with Arkham City on a much larger scale, but it feels like its own living, breathing world where you've got turf wars going on in the streets for who controls what area. And it had a plot that, even though some people might complain was a little too convoluted, it was still a very good and intriguing plot line.
Yeah.
Because between Hugo Strange and the Joker and what was going on with the gangs, it was a good time.
Yeah, for a plot line that's going on and has a bunch of things that you don't even necessarily have to dig into, it's well maintained, it's well put together. I think a lot of that falls on the shoulders of Paul Dini, who they told to take a hike for the third one, and
it shows.
It shows. And by the third one, I mean Arkham Knight, not Arkham Origins.
Oh, what?
Yeah. I don't hate Arkham Origins. I have fonder feelings for Arkham Origins than a lot of people do. It's glitchy, but it's okay.
I would have to revisit it, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
So for my number 8, I'm going to dive into something that you might not have expected, and that is the world of VR. So for number 8, I give you Astrobot Rescue Mission, which, as much as I hate to talk about games by just comparing them to other games, it's what a Super Mario 64 would be like in virtual reality.
It is to virtual reality what Mario 64 was to 3D gaming.
Yeah, that is very fair. And it, even though it played like a platformer where you're just running around, jumping, collecting things, the way it incorporated itself into VR, it would be hard to take it out of there. Like you had Lucky's Tale and then Super Lucky's Tale, where they're like, well, maybe we'll just do this without VR. In Astrobot Rescue Mission, VR is such a huge component of it.
Yes.
Without making it seem like a gimmick.
Yes, absolutely.
And for pretty much making me feel like I did the first time I played Mario 64, and for making a VR game that was more than just like, oh, what if it's a first-person shooter, but you're you instead of just a player. For that, it's my number 8 spot.
Yeah, the idea of a third-person VR platformer is weird.
Oh yeah,
in concept, but once you play it, it makes complete sense.
Feels great.
It does. I love it. In fact, it was on my number 8. It was on my list at number 8. But when I realized you put it on there, and then there is another VR experience that I feel probably connected with me a little bit more. Probably not a better game, but for what it is, connected with me personally a little more. I had to scrap Astrobot and replace it with Beat Saber.
Is that your number 8?
Beat Saber is my number 8.
Right on.
As a kid that grew up in arcades, playing a lot of Dance Dance Revolution and other rhythm games, a little bit of Beat Mania and things like that.
Yeah.
This got me on such a level. Like, I haven't been this active or this addicted to a game, certainly a rhythm game, in a long time.
Yeah.
And if my setup at home, I don't just have my VR, out in the living room.
Right.
I have to take everything out of the drawer and assemble it and put it together and then get set. Which is good, because if not, I would get nothing done. If I could just walk up, put the headset on, and start playing Beat Saber, there would be nothing achieved.
Have I ever told you about the Oculus Quest?
Oh, PayPal was $400, and I'll get that.
What was up with that, fam?
Yeah, either way, I love it. I love it so completely.
Alright, for my number 7 game, now we're going to get into something truly hot that probably no one has ever put on their top 10 list of the decade. And that is Saints Row the Third. And it might come as a surprise because, of course, we're talking about a time where you've had Grand Theft Auto 5 and everything. However, what I loved about Saints Row the Third, even though most people look at it as a Grand Theft Auto clone, it was with that third game where they truly found their spark as the fun alternative to Grand Theft Auto, where they just threw realism out the window, but not so much so like they did with 4, where you're just a superhero flying over shit. But you are running around beating up gumps with a dildo baseball bat. And it introduced the fun button, or the awesome button, my apologies, where it's a button that just, like, instead of a melee attack, just did an over-the-top crazy melee attack. And this game came out day and date with Skyrim, which took itself so seriously and was so in depth where people were just like, this was their game. And to me, it was an experience, but it wasn't just stupid fun. And that's why I feel that like juxtaposition when it came to Saints Row the Third really helped set it apart and helped cement as one of my favorite games of that generation.
Huh. I can't tell if that sounds like something I would really enjoy or absolutely hate.
Probably both.
Okay, my number 7. What's my number 7, Gerald? I was down in shame not to check my notes. Because my number 7 is Minecraft.
Okay.
Look, I know it became this YouTube sensation for children. Mm-hmm. I struggled to put it on this list because I have nephews. Okay. Who I was playing this game before some of them were born.
Fair.
And they run up to me and they talk about it all the time. So I hit a point with Minecraft where I was like, fuck this game. Stop talking to me about it. It's dumb. But then as I was really looking back over my decade, because I first put it in a little side list of important games of the decade, and then I remembered how much time I spent playing Minecraft. I was playing Minecraft in 2009, when it was in pre-alpha stage, when it was just creative.
Right.
You know, you go in, I'd go into people's servers, I'd build dicks. They would get mad at me and tell me I'd be kicked if I started building any more dicks. So I built giant buildings in which to build dicks inside of, away from other people, away from the view of the moderators. And that was a great time. And granted, that was 2009, but the game actually released officially in November 2011. Mm-hmm. Officially released, I think, a week after Skyrim.
Yeah.
And, you know, with the modability of it, the amount of stuff that you can just put into it, I always pine for the days of, like, the 90s with, like, id games and things like that, where the community would get involved and code their own stuff. Yeah, that mod community just really allowed the longevity that it has.
Yeah.
You know, between that and, you know, YouTube for kids, it has made, like, it's still a relevant conversation to have.
Right.
This game alphaed in 2009, and we're still talking about it. We're not just talking about it in retrospect. Mm. I mean, we are, because why would we talk about Minecraft? But as a community, Minecraft is still very much a part of the games conversation. I think last year it was the top streamed or the top Let's Played game on YouTube.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Still, and that's 8 years after its official release.
Yeah, and they're getting like a Harry Potter update this year.
Jesus.
Yeah.
But yeah, it left an impact. and I've dumped hundreds of hours into it at some point. So how could I just leave it off this list? It would be dishonest to not put it on my top 10 of the decade.
I am not judging you, man. I played a good bit of it. I admittedly didn't play that much as you have, but no, when it came out, it was a zeitgeist.
Yeah,
it really was, and it's still to this day. Yeah, as you just said, absolutely. It really does take a place where it's unavoidable.
Yeah. So we can all pretend like we're too good for it or we're too pro gamer for it, but but at the end of the day, you can't deny it. And I can't deny that it was one of my most played games of the decade. And that has to earn it a slot here. And that puts it right at number 7, right?
Number 7. Yes, sir. So for me, number 6, I'm going to give it to Borderlands 2. Mm-hmm. So if you know anything about me, I do enjoy Borderlands a lot because it took something that I loved about Diablo, which is the loot, and incorporate it into a more fast-paced, action-based first-person shooter. The characters are memorable, even though the dialogue can be a little cringy at times. But all in all, as a package, it was a really fun game to dive back into over and over again. The DLC was really good, whereas they were, this was still at the time where everything was based off of expansion types instead of, oh, hey, pay me $3 for a gun. On top of that, just the loot chase, the replayability, it was one of my most played games for a very long time. I have very fond memories of playing it with my friends where they would ninja loot the fuck out of everything. And yeah, I would love to say that Borderlands 3 overtook that spot, but no, Borderlands 2 is still the best of them.
Fair. I never played it that much, but maybe I would enjoy it. My closest experience to playing any Borderlands at all is watching you stream Borderlands 3. And I believe my comment was, this looks like Fallout if Fallout wasn't incredibly boring.
Yeah, that's kind of fair. It's a bit more over the top than Fallout, but yeah, it's not bogged down with, all the stuff that you had there, such as radiation and eating and
dullness.
Stuff like that. Yeah. Dullness. It's just, here's some shit to shoot. There's a
incredible dullness.
Borderlands 2 has a quest literally called Shooty McShootface, where it's just a guy standing on the edge of a cliff screaming for you to shoot him in the face. That's the quest. You have to shoot him in the face.
Wonderful.
And he just screams at you until you shoot him in the face. If you shoot him in the leg, he gets mad. He's like, no, just shoot me in the face. And that pretty much sums up the game.
Wonderful. I like it better than Fallout already. My number 6 is quite a bit different. It would be 2013's 3DS release, Animal Crossing New Leaf.
Oh.
I have an obsession with paying off raccoons. Paying off capitalist raccoons who are just really have me over a barrel. I've dumped hundreds of hours into that. I'm not gonna lie. Every time it's Christmas season, I boot that up. I try to buy toys for Toy Day, for the other animals, but then I realize that you're being kind of cryptic, and I really don't give a fuck what you want, Cody.
I like it.
But no, it's a great time. You're the mayor in that game, so you get to not impose martial law, unfortunately. You just get to decide public works projects. But, I'm happy to be able to tell people where to put a bench. And then, they take donations for the bench, and then you pay all of it because Cody's broke because he doesn't have a job.
Damn it, Cody.
He just works out at the gym constantly, and then you realize there's not a gym in the town, and you wonder what he's doing.
Oh, wow. He has an exercise bike in his basement.
I don't even think Cody has a basement.
Oh, man, that's sad.
Anyway, Cody, move out of my town.
Move it off the island, Cody.
He built his house right in front of mine. I was trying to have a palatial estate. I have a lot of thoughts about this.
I can tell.
None of them terribly coherent or tells why it's a good game. Because I don't know if you can explain why it's a good game. You just start playing it, and you get really invested in why these animals won't leave you alone.
Aww.
So you start digging holes in their front yard. And throwing litter there.
That's not good.
Not a good mayor.
No.
Anyway, I love Animal Crossing New Leaf. I am very excited for New Horizons on the Switch. But yeah, it's as many hours as I dumped into this. That became like something that I really had to acknowledge as I was going through this, because I think some of my list was like things that are really just like interesting or innovative or this and that, like those got jotted down on the list, or things that I thought were important. I was like, did I dump 200 hours into Grand Theft Auto 5? No, I dumped 200 hours into catching fucking beetles.
That's fair.
So Animal Crossing New Leaf it is for number 6, and that does it for our bottom 5. we're gonna take a breather and get in to our top fives. What is your number 5, Gerald James?
All right, so now that we're into the top fives, I'm going to hit you with something that also I spent hundreds of hours on. Mm-hmm. And it's not as charming as paying back a raccoon or anything. Instead, you're playing as a kid who was escaped his mother trying to murder him or something. It's I still don't know the plot very well, but it's a Binding of Isaac.
Okay.
And Binding of Isaac, as we mentioned earlier, is a roguelite where it's... I was captivated by it because I first found it on Twitch, where a guy was playing this game that looked like a Zelda clone, in a sense. Like the first Zelda, because you had these sectioned off rooms and, you know, you had your hearts and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But, you know, you fight enemies with your tear ducts, and everything's just really weird, and... I don't know. It has this vibe to it that the aesthetic really works with it, even though a lot of it's poop based.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the type of game that I found myself. It's one of those where I would play it whenever I had 30 minutes to kill. Mm-hmm. It's like I didn't want to dive deep into a game. It's like, oh, I've got 30 minutes to kill. I'll just go play this game. And then like 5 hours later, I'd be like, fuck, there went my night. So anything that can really captivate me like that definitely has to be high on this list. And I was honestly shocked because when I was making my list, I thought, well, at least we'll have one indie game on there. But we've now listed off at least 3 indie titles.
That's true.
In these games.
That's very true.
So it's been a good decade for indie developers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the best since the 90s for sure.
Yeah.
And granted, there was only one in between them. But... But yeah, it has been, indie games have come back in a real big way, and not only through the PC market, through all of them.
Yeah,
you know, all across all platforms.
I mean, between things like Xbox Game Pass and PlayStation Plus, I still have indie games I haven't even touched.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But I've got so much access to indie games, and with things like Steam sales, where it can be like, oh, you want to get this game for $3? Here you go. Yeah. You know, it opens up a lot more for those who have a passion about game making, instead of those who see it as a profitability thing.
Yeah, and even more. Once we get to, or we'll have a podcast episode where we talk about our runners up, and I got to tell you, I've got a lot of indie games in my runners up.
Not surprised.
And, you know, I struggled with taking some of them off. So it has just been an incredible year for them.
Decade. Yeah.
But yeah, Binding of Isaac I enjoyed. Mm-hmm. You might not think I did, since I bought it for the Switch and then sold it off.
Right.
But it's a good game. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's the kind of game that I can end up dumping as many hours into it as you did.
That's reasonable.
I have, mostly because like I like hard and frustrating games, but the roguelike nature of it, where it sets you back to, you're not at complete zero, but like if you die, you're back to the beginning before you've really figured out what's going on, and then everything has changed. Frustrates me.
But then you're constantly getting new items and stuff and finding these synergies, which honestly, it's the synergies of Isaac that make the game fun for me. Mm-hmm. Is picking up these items that work well with each other. And then you go from being this weak little kid that can barely take a hit to just, if you get the right luck and go with the right choices, you can become a god by the end of the run, where you're just demolishing everything. And I say a god because, I mean, you can kill God or Satan.
Yeah. I'll have to give it another try, maybe with a bit more of an open mind.
I recommend it.
Right on.
What takes your number 5?
My number 5 is surprising in that it is as low as it is, because I really thought that when it came down to it, this was going to end up getting back up there, and that's Doom 2016.
Okay.
2016's Doom, the reinvention of Doom, is a surprising take on it. Whenever it first came out, I didn't play it. I didn't actually have any consoles to play it at the time, or a good enough PC, but I also wasn't interested. And I played it at a friend's house, and I remained uninterested. And then it came out on the Switch. I bought it because I was buying everything for the Switch, and it's Doom, so why not? Played about hour and a half of it, and I still wasn't impressed. I even went on to tell people that it's an okay game, but it's not Doom. I don't know what people are talking about. And it turns out you just need to push through to that second hour. You just need to get 2 hours under your belt. It's fun up until that point, but if you're really expecting a Doom experience, you might walk away a little, underwhelmed from those first couple hours. But once you really dig into it, it's not one-to-one Doom, and it doesn't try to be. It is a modern take on that concept, and it is just balls out fun. It's not a retro throwback first-person shooter. It's its own thing, and it achieves what those early shooters did in an incredible way. And it's just, I've dumped so much time into it since.
I played a bit of it. Like, I've probably got maybe 3 or 4 levels in. And it's a good game, but I did find it to be pretty damn hard. And as you saw whenever I was trying to play Doom 2, like, Switch shooters, I'm not great at them. And this, there's a lot at you to deal with very quickly.
That is very true.
So I can definitely see how it keeps the same aesthetic or the same like style as those original games, while being its own thing.
There's definitely just moments. It's done in a different way, you know. There's no levels that are just full of monsters that you can all corral into one room or get them all to chase you. There's instances. You know, you engage certain fights by, you know, ripping into the gore nests and all of that.
Ripping and tearing.
But once you're in those scenarios, and there's even scenarios outside of the gore nest scenarios where it just feels like old Doom. You're getting, even though you're leaping off of things and grabbing on the ledges and shit, it manages to do all of that, feel new, and still give you those old Doom feelings. And for that, it's got to be up there for me.
I like it.
Yeah.
For my number 4 game, this one you might be like, oh my god, it's down on number 4, but we're talking about 10 years worth of games, so this is where trying to decide what goes where got really difficult.
Yes.
And even though this was definitely one of my favorite games of this past console generation, there's still more that I felt was better than it. And that was The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt.
Okay.
And one of the reasons I love this game is because with most Western RPGs, part of the problem has always been that even though the gameplay had a satisfying loop and, you know, things like that, it was more action heavy. It was based on that instead of on characters and on, you know, the story, the plot. And with The Witcher 3, it's, of course, they've had 2 other games and a series of books to work with to kind of give you this world. But it feels like such a fresh and alive world where your choices truly matter. And it does remind me of like the older Mass Effect titles where that might have been the case with Mass Effect 1, 2, and kind of 3. But this kind of took that up to 11. And incorporate with that the loot drops and stuff that you can get in the game and hunting for the next best weapons and armor. And you had this entire side game of collecting and playing cards with Gwent. And that took me back to a place with like Final Fantasy VIII where I was playing triple triad like a motherfucker. So it had so many things that just hit all of the right boxes for me. It had compelling characters, compelling world, and its side quests were more in-depth than a lot of games full game. And I can't think of a better crafted all-around world than that of The Witcher 3.
Fantastic. It's on my list. I own it. It's not on this list.
Right.
It's on my list of things to get around to.
And I understand, we've had this conversation. It's, the tutorial level is about 20 hours long, so I can understand a man in your state not being able to give it the attention it deserves.
Yeah, I'm a man who loves RPGs, but also works 50 hours a week and then does this for the rest of it. So, eternally involved in projects. So, RPGs do not agree with my schedule, but I maintain my love for them, and I will one day, after I retire, play Witcher 3.
That's why we need to be supported on Patreon, so this man can play Witcher 3,
Just
not just to have his entire idea of the Witcher universe based off of Henry Cavill.
Even though I liked it.
It was a good time.
My number 4 is this is where like parsing them did get harder. But my number 4 is 2017's Super Mario Odyssey.
Okay.
It brought the Mario series back to what I really liked from 3D platformers, and just cranked it up in a big way, like in a big way that wasn't like Banjo-Tooie or Donkey Kong 64, where it's like, oh yeah, there's a whole bunch of shit to do. It's like, yeah, there's a bunch to do, but it scales properly here. I just ultimately had hours of fun, or probably close to 100 hours of fun on a Mario game, and that's insane.
That's fair. Again, I didn't play as much, but I loved it.
Yeah. It's a wonderful time, and I went back to it. And started again and played more. I got about halfway and beat it again, but I enjoyed the hell out of it. It's so charming. So charming, especially when you do the Donkey Kong stuff in New Donk City.
New Donk City.
New Donk City.
It's my favorite name for an area.
My favorite Wesley Snipes movie.
So my number 3.
Your number 3.
It's I know it's number 3 and not last, but we're talking about PlayStation 3 and 4's The Last of Us. Now this, I know, isn't up your alley because you're not one of those cinematic game types.
Yeah, I hate them.
And this is a game that is a stealth game with an action game built in that is very cinematic and has, yet again, the story on this made me cry in multiple places.
Okay.
I'm not ashamed to admit that. And this was one of those games that once I started playing it, I couldn't put down.
Okay.
I honestly think it took me just 2 sittings to beat it, and that's not, because it's a short game. And I feel like this was also where Sony realized, which they've had others before, like with Uncharted, but this is what they were saying, that this is our wheelhouse. We are going to make fantastic single-player narrative-driven experiences and leave, the multiplayer shooters and stuff to everyone else.
Yeah.
And as a publisher, I feel like this was a huge step for Sony. And that's something that we've seen through games such as Horizon Zero Dawn and Spider-Man and God of War even, where they've taken this direction and they're like, this is what we do best, so we gonna do it the best. And there's not a whole lot to be said. If you played Last of Us, then you know exactly why this game is sitting where it's sitting.
All right. Well, I didn't, so I don't. But I'll take your word for
You
it.
should.
I won't.
You have
but that's
access
okay.
to it.
I do. But I won't.
Why not?
Because there's a whole list of games that I still haven't got to that sound like I would enjoy.
You should base what you're going to play off of the Metacritics.
No. But I'm glad you enjoy it, and maybe one day I'll get around to it right after I finish Witcher 3.
I'll hold my breath.
In my late 50s.
I'm holding my breath.
My number 3. Came out in 2010. Mm-hmm. I bought it in probably 2011. And since then, have routinely dumped hundreds of hours into it. I probably have... it's more than 400 hours. You can probably check my Steam page if you want an exact accuracy on it. But Civilization 5.
Wow, okay.
And I'm still not that great at it. I'm pretty good. I wouldn't play competitively or anything. Mostly, I will tell you that a lot of those hours come, at least 100 of those 400 hours have been post-game. Okay. Where I'm just like, you know what? I already won. I'm destroying France. Giant death robots will come sweeping through the French countryside. You know, global domination, it's my thing.
I feel that. I always went for the art victory, but alright.
Art victory? What the fuck is wrong with you?
I mean, I'm a peaceful man.
The cultural victory is... for idiots. We're taking some harsh stands on Civilization 5 here. Science victory is the way to go. Military victories take too long because you have to take everyone's capital.
Yeah.
No thanks. 5 cities, research. It's all you need. And if you're focusing on that, your military is going to be more advanced. Everything's going to be more advanced. You're gonna truck right along.
I know you came for a listicle, but you're also getting those hot tips on Civilization 5.
Yeah, 5 cities.
5 cities. You stopped playing Civ 5 because Civ 6 is out now?
Civ 6 is out now. I have not dug into it.
There you go.
I will. But, it's been out a couple years and I still haven't managed to get around to it. But I will.
Maybe you'll like it more.
Maybe I will.
Because you know what they say. Hindsight is 20/20.
Cut that out.
Okay.
What's your number 2, Gerald James?
My number 2 game of all time, and oh boy, this is one that I was constantly shifting back and forth on my list between 1 and 2. Because these 2 games, it's hard to say that one was better than the other. But God damn it, that's my job. So here we are. Number 2 on my list is probably one of the most innovative, or at least duplicated games of the past decade.
Okay.
And that's Dark Souls.
Okay. I'm not certain that ball-breakingly hard is innovative, but certainly has been duplicated.
Not just in its difficulty, but
it's become synonymous for hard.
And I mean, that's fair, but anyone who can learn can beat this game.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say it's not fair. It's not fair. Anybody that's played games, so that there's been hard games forever. Not here to trash talk your choice at all.
No, because it is.
I'm not saying anything bad about Dark Souls.
It's one of the best games of all time. Mm-hmm. And even though I did start with Demon Souls, and it's not trying to get gamer cred, it's just I've been in love with a company called Atlas, and they published Demon Souls. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to pre-order this blindly and just buy it when it comes out.
That's fair. I had a friend that was into Demon Souls, a friend that was very into games. And I remember, for some reason, don't know how, because this was a time in my life when I didn't really play games. I was like, they're doing a kind of a follow-up to Demon Souls. And he's like, what are you talking about? No, they're not. Like, yeah, it's called Dark Souls. I very distinctly remember that. I was like, I don't know why I know this before him.
And Dark Souls straight up took every lesson they learned with Demon Souls and added upon it and rolled out. Even though there have been 2 other Dark Souls games, with Dark Souls 2 and 3, which are both good. 3 better than 2. And games in the same vein with Bloodborne and Sekiro. Mm-hmm. To me, the pinnacle will always be Dark Souls. Just with the map design and the layout of the game altogether, as well as, just such memorable moments that can't be duplicated because it's pretty much just like a throwback to that. And Oddly enough, I didn't start watching Twitch until Dark Souls came out. And the reason is because after I would get done playing, I would want to go back and watch others struggle through the same shit I did. And I would sit there smugly waiting for them to figure out things that, I took a long time to figure out. That also kind of opened up another whole world to me. But all in all, Dark Souls, I feel, is one of the most pure gaming experiences. Not from a narrative standpoint or anything like that, but just what gaming is about, which is figuring things out, overcoming challenges, and just pure gamification. It's one of the best games of all time.
Okay.
If you haven't checked it out, you should.
Okay.
3 people in the world.
Most people have. Even I have, and I'm me.
Yeah, you are you.
So, though, in your explanation there, I realize that you should understand how I feel watching you play Doom.
Yeah, that's fair.
What you described watching people do on Twitch is how I felt with watching you play Doom. It was a great time, brought joy to my heart.
And oddly enough, I felt like Dark Souls was more forgiving.
Maybe so. And you weren't even playing on the big boy levels.
Hell no.
My number 2, Gerald, might be a lot harder to explain to the world than your number 2. I don't think anybody is going to contend that Dark Souls isn't worth this list. And I don't know if anybody that has actually played this game would give me any such shit. But I think a lot of people probably haven't. My number 2 is an indie game. My number 2 is a throwback first-person shooter. Goes by the name of Dusk.
Really?
Yes.
Second best game of this generation.
You thought I was bullshitting when I was talking this game up.
No.
It is my second favorite game of the generation, of this decade.
Well, I'll be damned.
Dusk harkens back to Quake.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, it's been pretty aptly described as kind of Quake mixed with blood.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just incredible. It's episodic. There's 3 episodes. All of them, very different in tone.
Mm-hmm.
Just the gunplay on it is incredible. This is a first-person shooter, a low-poly first-person shooter made in Unity. And it's incredible.
All right.
The guy that made it, I believe his name's David Szymanski.
Mm.
Put it out through New Blood Interactive, who put out a lot of kind of throwback first-person shooters and similar games. Mm. I believe his other games are all kind of like point-and-click horror games, from what I looked at.
Yeah.
And he decided he was going to make a low-poly throwback first-person shooter, and it's incredible.
It sounds like he knocked it out of the park.
He absolutely did. I was obsessed with this game. I was scared of this game. There are legitimately horrifying moments in this game. The monsters that you face, mm-hmm. Some of them are just genuinely chilling. Some of them give you weird jump scares. Some of them you just don't want to see. Some of them you don't see.
Okay.
There's one called the Wendigo. You're introduced to it. It is invisible until you hit it.
Okay.
That's all I'll say. Because even I knew that going into this game, and the introduction to that thing still fucked me up. It's wonderful. Completely wonderful. If you are a fan of 90s first-person shooters, get Dusk. It's like, I don't know, $15-$20. You can find it on a Steam sale, probably.
Yeah.
Well worth your time. It's supposed to be coming to the Nintendo Switch, but anytime somebody mentions it to the guy, he kind of laughs it off.
Just nervously laughs.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, Switch, we're working on that.
so I don't know, but definitely, I mean, it's a throwback first-person shooter. Play it on the PC. You know,
That's fair.
My shitty computers run it. So,
and your computers are trash.
Yeah, they are. They absolutely are trash.
Oh man. Here we are. The number one, the top of the mountain. What was the best game to come out this past decade? Well, for me, if you know much about me, this probably shouldn't come as much of a surprise. The biggest surprise was probably when I said Dark Souls at number 2 instead of placing it at number 1. But there was a game that I took vacation for when it came out that I platinumed, which is a feat. And that the first playthrough took 80 hours, and I made sure to knock that out in about 4 days. And that is Persona 5. And I've been a longtime fan. Like I said earlier, I've been a fan of Atlas. I've been a fan of this particular studio since I picked up the first game, oddly enough, on a whim, because it was like $10 in a bargain bin and FYE. But whenever I took it home and I played that first game and I got into a battle and they're like, oh, would you rather dance for the demons and see if they help you? It's like, fuck yeah, sure. Let's dance for some demons. And then I got deeper into things and it's like, oh, well, this is a very different take on the Japanese RPG. So I followed this series since that first game and I've been in love with every single one that's released. And Persona 5, even though Persona 3, Persona 4 were fantastic games. They're definitely in my top 10 of all time. I feel like Persona 5 did a lot to take any grievances I had with the previous games and throw them out the window. Instead of like randomized basic dungeons, it's now handcrafted that actually has elements of stealth, has elements of, just like puzzles within those dungeons, and does a really good job of making that just as intriguing a part of the gameplay as your day-to-day life, where you're, getting to know your classmates, going through like a visual novel style drama. And it just really kind of hit every note that it needed to for me. There's even some throwbacks to the previous games, even though you don't have to have played any of the previous ones to enjoy it. And it hit me on so many different levels. I was like, man, this very well may be the best game of all time. And I still feel that way to this day. The only way I have not replayed it after platinuming it, the only reason is because we've got Persona 5 Royale coming out. And I'm going to save my hype for that, because I'm going to probably knock that out in a week too.
Wonderful. I haven't played any of the Atlas RPGs. Certainly none of the Personas or Shin Megami Tensei, however you say that.
You got it right.
Yeah, look at me. But I am a bit fascinated by it. I like the art direction. I like the musical choices.
The music and the art are so good.
Yeah.
Persona 5 is probably the most stylish game ever released, period.
Yeah, from what I've seen of it, it very much seems that way. I will eventually dig into that.
The only warning that I could give someone is that it's based in high school. So you're going to get like some Japanese high school drama.
Okay,
so
that's fine.
If you're the type that's like, oh, why would I watch a high school anime? Then you're not going to enjoy a Persona game, pure and simple. But if you can look past that, we're talking about some of the best games ever released.
Wonderful. I think I said through some Death Note, so I'll be okay.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
And now for the final game of this video. This is a game that might shock you to be at my number 1, because I have said some things about it that aren't necessarily 100% positive, and that comes from a place of affection for the series and some disappointment that I definitely had with the game. But all the same, I dumped a couple hundred hours into this game, which is more than I can say for even a lot of the games in this series. Most of them you can't really dump 200 hours into, but I have by repeat plays. But The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild
I knew it was coming.
is my number one of the decade. It reinvents Zelda in a way that Zelda needed. It's not perfect in that reinvention. It needs to bring back some of the things that they shed.
Like a hook shot?
Like a hook shot. Like real temples, like real dungeons.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see that in the upcoming follow-up. But at the end of the day, the game before this, which, don't get me wrong, it got jotted down in my big list of games that I was plucking from, but Skyward Sword is the worst Zelda game. The worst official Zelda game, obviously. And that's not to say it's a bad game. It's still a good game, but it's the worst Zelda game.
That's right. You're no longer the worst Oracle of Ages.
It never was. Those games are incredible. They're hard. They're incredible. But it just taking that, because it got so bogged down in the formula to where it lost so much of what made Zelda good. So to take that and break it and just come out with this huge open air, as they describe it, game. And when you hear that, you're like, whatever. But when you play it, you're like, yeah, like open world doesn't really cut it as a description for the game, because you're all over the place,
right?
And it's just it was just a hell of an adventure, just to learn this new version of Hyrule that's just massive for once, that actually takes advantage of some things that have some advances that have happened in gaming. I can remember playing Morrowind back in the day and being like, I wish they would do something like this with Zelda. And they finally did. And it's not perfect. It needs to bring back some conventions. But there's no going back with this series. This is a seismic shift in the Legend of Zelda series, to the point where, like, after Skyward Sword, mainline Zelda was bordering on irrelevant.
Yeah.
Some could make the argument that it was irrelevant. And looking at that game, I couldn't make that much of an argument.
You know what I would like to see happen?
What's that?
I would like for them to do something with Zelda, very much in the same way that they've kind of done Mario, where you've got your new Super Mario type stuff, where it's your side scroller, jumpy jumps, and then you've got your 3D Mario, such as Galaxy. Or
Odyssey.
Yeah.
Galaxy. Galaxy was one.
Galaxy was one as well. So that's what I feel they should do, is just have your 2D-esque Zelda games. Like what would traditionally have been a handheld Zelda.
Yeah.
And then your big, massive Zelda.
Yeah.
So if they did that, like alternating every 2 years or so, that'd be gravy.
Yeah. And I think that looks like what they're going to do.
Fingers crossed. We don't know what's happening after Breath of the Wild 2, of course.
We don't. We don't even know when Breath of the Wild 2 is happening. A lot of speculation puts it at late this year. I don't think that is impractical, but it's not going to happen.
That would be the best time for it.
It would be, but it won't. My money is on that game not coming out this year.
Ah, that'd be disappointing.
They might even announce it that it'll come out this year, and then it'll come out early next year.
But it would be such a good way to keep people from like diving straight into the next gen consoles.
Absolutely. And maybe they're on it. I mean, it's reusing assets. A lot of this started as expansion stuff that they were working on. So maybe it is there. Maybe I'm dead wrong. But I've been following Zelda releases for 25 years now. And not a single one has come out as quickly as you'd think it would.
That's fair.
With the exception of, I guess, Majora's Mask. That was a 2-year turnaround.
Right.
But everything since then...
And this would have to be the Majora's Mask of this gen.
Yes. And that looks like what it's going to be, but it's still going to be a big game.
Fair.
So we'll see.
So there you have it.
There you have it. That's both of our top 10s. If you want to hear about some of our runners-up, we're talking about those on episode 20, I think.
20.
Episode 20.
Putting up big numbers.
Podcast. I don't know. How do you feel about your list? Do you feel it's definitive, or do you feel like it's a whim?
As we're still talking, I still don't know if Persona 5 or Dark Souls is number 1.
Okay.
I'll be entirely honest.
I feel as solid with my list as I possibly can.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear.
Like that is a definitive 10, I think.
Like, I like every single one I had in that list, obviously.
Yeah.
But I'm happy with where everything is except for those two. Those are the two that are going to have me bashing my brains against the wall long after this video comes out.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, my top 4 there was just a struggle.
Yeah.
It was a complete struggle. At one point, I was like, "Is Dusk my favorite game?" No, I'm just fresh off of it. So let me really dig.
And I'm going to be honest, and spoilers for the podcast, but that's the reason Death Stranding is not on my list, is because I'm worried that I'm so fresh off of it that I've still got those goggles on.
Yeah,
those rose-colored glasses.
That's fair. I'm far enough away from Dusk. To know that it's not rose-colored glasses, to know that it got me exactly as much as it got me. But no, like, yeah, I feel as solid with that list as I possibly can.
Good job, team.
We're great.
We're the best.
Like, subscribe, comment down below. Let us know your top 10 of the decade. Let us know if you hate our top 10. Let us know if you love our top 10. Let me know if you played Dusk.
Thanks for hanging out for like an hour of video.
Yeah, this is an insane amount of video that we've done here. We've never done one this long.
We did a Witcher episode of video here.
But we
toss a like to your streamers.
If I hate anything about that show, it's that song.
Hell yeah.
So, yeah, again, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Comment down below. Check out our podcast if you want to hear our runners-up. And,
catch your boy on Twitch.
Catch your boy on Twitch.
Mushbrains Media.
Mushbrains Media. I might pop up on one of those here and there.
I want to try to string them in.
Yeah.
Make them play something terrible.
Yeah.
You ever played PT?
I haven't played PT.
We're going to have his first PT experience on stream.
Let's do it. Halloween in January.
Halloween in January.
Next week. Let's do it.
I'm here for it.
Let's do it. We're both off work for a good stretch.
So come check that out. And, of course, listen to the podcast, watch the streams, watch our videos.
Yeah, and we'll have more and more videos coming to you.
Go to flickeringmyth.com.
Yeah, flickeringmyth.com. That's our parent website.
We write about stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
Not as often as we just talk at each other.
Yeah.
But we write.
We do all the podcasts. Check us out.
Every single one.
All of them. And we will see you in the next video.